Malboros are true monstrosities to be feared within the world of Final Fantasy. I believe this short personifies the terror of what it feels to try and escape the slimy clutches of one. But I could also show you this. Biologically recognized as sentient plant life, species such as the Venus flytrap, Nephentis raha, and the Dorsera capensis may be a few names you recognize and are also predatory plants. But these plants still benefit from the photosynthesis, while Malboros do not. Malboros also possess long, thick vine-like appendages, but do not use them to extract water and nutrients from the ground. They are purely meat eaters. Unlike the plants named, Malboros are able to think, but driven entirely by the need to consume flesh. Despite their immense size, they are silent hunters, usually in wait for their prey to draw near and then scoop them up. They can slowly navigate around obstacles till they stealthily approach their prey. Despite the rows of jagged teeth, they don't actually chew. They simply place you in the bile within their mouths and slam shut. Not much you can do once that happens. Bound to be a cluster of various diseases. Even if you somehow manage to escape death from within its maw, death from infection would occur soon after. It'll consume you anyway.
No one has ever studied a Malboro long enough without great risk to find out. But you can probably tell how often a Malboro needs to eat based on the flower on its head. Simply named Malboro flower, it has a yellow color and takes weeks to grow, yet only blooms for a single day.
Despite where this flower is grown, it is described as having a cloying sweet scent. For a creature known for its horrific smell, producing something so incredibly sweet is unthinkable. This flower takes weeks to bloom, an indicator towards how long a Malboro can go without food. The flower being a last chance to capture prey in an ambush, or guarantee a surplus to promote growth. A curious creature wanting to find such a delicious scent wanders nearby and is much more easily ambushed this way. The same predatory plants we mentioned above use sweet-smelling nectar to also attract insects and other animals. So before we get into what Malboros eat on average, we need to look at Malboro's life cycle. Malboros do possess male and female genders, but it's never been observed how they mate. Most Malboros are found in the darkest, rare, unexplored parts of the world. Maybe a female Malboro retreats to one of these deep areas, and a male is lured by the scent of her flower during these times. But this has yet to be proven. A Malboro's life begins as a seed pod. Seed pods have only been found in the deepest parts of the world. The eggs of a Malboro are sometimes also called Malboro fruit, appearing in clusters against walls or floors bearing a greenish hue covered in slimy mucus. The incubation period of a newborn Malboro is fairly long. No exact time frame is known, but by the time one hatches, it bears a striking resemblance to its parent and is fully capable of protecting itself from lesser threats. Reasons why it's so hard to get our hands on a live specimen in incubation is because the adult Malboros defend their children. Sometimes the male won't be present, but the female defends her pods and offspring to the death. Once hatched, they are Malboro sprouts. They are around the size of an adult human with all the capabilities of their parents at a lesser degree. Their tentacles grab, their fangs bite, and they still have bad breath, but far less potent. We know not when young Malboros venture on their own, but at this point in their life cycle, the mother, or both parents, are still guarding their young, staying very close. From this point, Malboros begin the long process of becoming an adult, and that requires a lot of food. Their size is affected by their environment, but also how much they are able to eat. After a month or so, the parents of the Malboro may leave the sprouts, or they may simply leave on their own. It may be both. Adult Malboros must use much of their energy for their young, and must fend for themselves. The young also need much more food and can't wait for their parents. Because of their size, they aren't nearly as terrifying, so they leave together in packs. Many creatures such as corals, chimeras, and other predators can easily pick them off. But the more they eat, the more they grow. The stronger Malboro must most likely eat the best bits of the prey while the weaker get the scraps. These Malboro are most likely killed by predators or possibly even devoured by their own kin. A Malboro small and weak enough to be devoured by a sibling in one gulp seems viable. Then the ones left get so large that they need to hunt for themselves, or simply not risk being eaten by one of their own. They slowly become loners and become silent monstrosities we know today. With that being said, what do they eat? We have examined every location where Malboros have been sighted and can determine their feeding patterns based on their age. Adult Malboros tend to be found in the deepest areas of the world. So first we must look where they can be found naturally. At adolescence, the typical diet of a Malboro seems to start with flans and other smaller creatures like parasites. Malboros prefer to pick up their prey whole and simply dunk them into their mouths to begin digestion. Flans are the perfect size. A parent Malboro can simply bad breath a group of them, rendering them helpless, and then the young can swallow them whole, while also at the same time teaching them how to use their bad breath attacks. So anything small around the size or just under the size of a human should do. Flans, goblins, parasites, exo-rays, bog toads, hun legs, and so on. At this point, either nature culled the weaker of the brood, or were eaten by their siblings if they didn't reach a certain height. By this time, their bad breath should reach its minimum requirement to cripple most foes without their parent. Thus, the hunting pyramid increases to creatures such as corals, gigantoads, cockatrices, shield shears, and so on. But certain creatures must still be avoided, such as corals. Even though their own killing spells and skills don't work on Malboros, they are still very agile and dangerous, resulting in a high loss of their young over time. Long past adulthood, Malboros can continue to grow and become more powerful with age and the food they consume. So if they had no choice, they could take on prey such as behemoths or griffins. A Malboro large enough may be swayed to go in contact with a city for food. It needs causing massive panic. But most retreat deeper into the unknown parts of forest and alike, feeding and possibly growing much bigger. A massive Malboro could be lying in wait for some unfortunate adventurer. So we've learned that despite their massive size, they are silent killers, quietly stalking their prey in the cover of darkness, or lying in wait like non-sentient predatory plants. A young prince happened to record for the first time this natural predatory hunting skill.
なんだあれ。
気をつけて。
おい、近づくな。危ねえぞ。おいおいおいおい。
Being lured by the Malboro flower into a death trap. But not everything always goes according to plan. So if a Malboro happens to miss an ambush, it's so hungry that it needs to go actively hunt, or is simply being threatened. They have a dangerous arsenal of attacks to use. The attacks of a Malboro can drastically change due to its environment. For instance, Malboro located in the Cave of Mystia or the Jade Passage don't even use bad breath. But when they hit something with their tentacles, they can instantaneously cause a multitude of horrible effects, like bad breath. Malboro tentacles have been known to spew the same bile that resides in their mouths, so they must coat their appendages in the slimy substance. But if their tentacles don't do the job, they can simply bite down on you with their massive jaws, crippling you. If that doesn't work, they still have plenty of deadly attacks at their disposal. The Malboros located at the northern caves are able to shoot beams of extreme cold at you. The ones found in the areas around Estar are able to disorient you with eerie sound waves. They spit concentrated bullets of digestive acid, and even a much weaker version of bad breath, dubbed cloying breath, most likely to save the brunt of their stink for a greater number of prey or dangerous enemies. Some found in the land of Ivalis have been known to purify themselves of the effects you manage to hit them with. That's not very many, considering they have an immunity to most or sometimes all status effects attempted to be placed on them, making them even more terrifying. But aside from that, they are also capable mages. Bio, Thundaga, Osmos, and Absorb are the spells that we know that Malboros are capable of. This isn't surprising because along with their threatening appearance, these creatures do possess intelligence. They time and time have been seen learning from their mistakes and avoiding hunting parties, making them even more difficult to catch when they survive. But the one thing all of these attacks have in common is that they are meant to hinder you. Frozen Beam damages and slows you. Digestive Juices starts melting the muscles to prevent running or start breaking down tough hides of prey. Thundaga can stun you. All meant to stop, not destroy, because the Malboro's priority is to consume you as food. But the most terrifying weapon in a Malboro's skills is its iconic Bad Breath. Its name is self-explanatory, but its description and effects change based on the location, type, and age of the Malboro. It is stated, the Malboro hurls out a wave of rancid, visible breath, so foul that it cripples whoever breathes it in and inflicts several diseases and effects. These effects happen instantaneously, causing nearly every status effect recorded. Also, the stink is so bad, it has been witnessed to induce madness. A single whiff can turn you into stone, or put you to sleep to be peacefully killed in a pool of putrid digestive juices. Even if one somehow manages to escape the mouth of a Malboro, after being placed inside, they would most likely die hours or minutes due to mass infection. So how exactly does bad breath work? Young Malboros have it, but not even close to the capability of an adult. It also seems to become significantly worse with age. I believe this can easily be explained through its eating habits. Young Malboros are incapable or only able to use a very weak version of bad breath, called cloying breath. This can only induce sleep, slow, or both. Perfect for defending oneself or catching very weak, small prey. As they eat and the flesh they consume decomposes in their mouths, this adds to the pool of their digestive juices, thus increasing the power of bad breath. Malboros have two stomachs, a smaller one to digest things further past the mouth, and then finally settling in the second stomach. But the digestive juices, as powerful as they are, can't melt down everything. Slain Malboros have often been found with weapons and other equipment of high quality material within them. For simple breath attacks, they use the gas accumulated within the first stomach. This is what we believe allows Malboros to use cloying breath long after infancy. But over the years, everything it's ever digested continues to rot and add to this pool over time, further increasing its power. Flans are known to cause slow. Parasites have the sap ability. Corels can cause stone and silence. Cockatrices can also cause stone. Vortooths, poison. Bog toads for the toad ability. All of these creatures over its lifetime are digested in the Malboro's second stomach. Since the Malboro is immune to these effects themselves, they can take in such a large amount of whatever organ can produce these effects, but their stomachs will not break them down. Instead, making this pool of digestive juices strong and continue becoming stronger as it grows bigger and can add more to this pool. Then as a Malboro gets even older, the brunt of its pool is filled with the most dangerous creatures from parts of the world we may have never even seen, and then becomes really bad breath, not even needing to cause multiple status effects, and just outright kills whoever breathes it in. Death most likely occurring from pure shock. When a Malboro reaches a certain age, they become great Malboros. Aside from an increase in size, they change their colors. They have been seen a dark blue and some black depending on the region. The Evolicians believe it's the result of something called spirit tree flux, a phenomenon occurring in many plants and plant creatures within the also strange phenomenon known as mist. But this may not entirely be true because they have been found in regions without mist. A more plausible cause is that the mist speeds up the process of becoming a great Malboro. The mist has these incredible effects on life forms and inanimate objects. We will address this at a later time. Malboro Overking is the oldest Malboro form discovered to date. The Evolicians described it as, "This Malboro, through its abstinence of the odd practice of heterogenesis, by which its lesser ilk procreate, has reached the foreseeable pinnacle of its development. Its hide has grown hard to the point of petrification, and the crown it wears is studded with a glittering gemstone for each year of its life. Truly a king among foul-smelling vegetables." Located in the greatest depths of the Garum Scythe waterway, they have evolved to a near-perfect form. Physical attacks having less effect than ever without the greatest weapons and the bad breath worse than ever. These Malboro have evolved in the strange way, growing an actual crown on their forehead. We have seen strange occurrences in nature before, but a physical crown could be a warning to not even attempt at challenging such a creature. My theory is that the single bloom Malboro flower bud may slowly turn into this crown over time. There are also several strange Malboro that must be mentioned. In Gaia, the Malboros have been seen flying. This incredibly strange phenomenon was first discovered by the Princess of Alexandria and her protectors. Malboros have never been seen in Gaia until the arrival of the dread ship Pandemonium. So it's either the ship brought Malboro from another world, or the cataclysmic result of its arrival shook the world so bad that these monstrosities came out of the deepest parts of the forest they resided in. Our theory into how they fly is through the propulsion of its gastric juices. This form of flatulent flight is possible, I suppose, by using its tentacles to eject and propel, but at a great cost. Its bad breath loses the range it normally has and can only attack one enemy. So this form of movement is perfect for ambushes, but must be wary of risk against large groups. Carrot is a peculiar specimen. It was raised by a family and became a massive Malboro quickly, but likely due to being fed the highest quality food. On escaping, it becomes quite the problem, retreating to its place of origin and taking over as a powerful Malboro. Keeping Malboros as pets actually isn't as rare as you think. The rich tend to keep them because it's a rare, exotic creature. But what surprises us more is the bonds these Malboros can make. Malboros are very intelligent, and Carrot was a well-sized Malboro before it escaped. Perhaps it was being fed good food and simply didn't see a reason to kill its owner. Perhaps it did care for the owner but couldn't pass on the chance to escape to its home. The warriors found in Erosia are sometimes seen with Malboro seedlings as companions. Malboros are agreed to be some of the most terrifying creatures in the world. So you'd have to ask, who would ever experiment with one aside from learning how to better stop them? Unfortunately, a philosopher named Catherine Azua, specializing in plants, created Malboro seeds. They hatched and escaped from her lab, and have been a pain ever since. They are easily identified by their dark red hue and have been named Cassie, maybe as an insult to its maker. There are also a few other terrifying accounts. A very rare Malboro was spotted and dispatched by a group of accused terrorists led by the Queen. The legend goes that an ancient witch turned herself into a Malboro, and then from her, all Malboros came into being. But this isn't entirely true. Turns out the witch was actually a plant entity itself, and then became a Malboro. So maybe this creature had been another form or evolution of a Malboro, and maybe there are more terrifying forms skulking in parts of the unseen world. Malboro kings are another disturbing fact. They have similar appearance to the Malboro overkings. The rumor is that the crown on its head is actually cursed, that if one defeats a Malboro and wears the crown, they will be turned into a Malboro themselves. This is terrifying because the equipment found on an old Malboro could be very valuable, if not through gil, through its parameters. One should resist temptation and destroy it if able. Not worth the risk. As hopeless as it seems to fight against a single adult Malboro, they do have weaknesses. They are normally weak to fire and ice, but there are exceptions, such as Malboros found in Gaia's Cliff, where they are used to very cold climates. Cassies seem to be only weak against wind magic, the result of experimentations probably. Carrot seems to be immune to all elements other than holy. Malboro kings also have a weakness to holy, maybe due to it being the cursed crown. But the overkings also have that same weakness. Maybe the bile in them, the age, and the sheer amount of creatures they devoured makes them evil enough to be weak against holy. Even though we highly recommend avoiding any type of Malboro at all costs, the rewards can greatly benefit many people. The parts of a Malboro can be used to create many salves and potions to cure just about every sickness imaginable. The substance used for bad breath can be applied as an oil within weapons like the flame tongue to keep it burning seemingly forever. Nature has found a balance to keep Malboros at bay. If somehow there was a mass number of them, they could easily devour everything in that region, leaving nothing but dead, rotting waste. But this would stop fairly soon if you can lock them off for a few weeks and they're forced to devour each other. One is very threatening, but it can be handled by a small group of 20 or so well-informed and trained soldiers with high protective gear against ailments. As powerful as their bite and tentacles, their greatest power is their ailments. Stop that and your chances increase dramatically. Equipment such as the ribbon, though expensive and very rare, can handle all of these issues. These rumors about a plant monster with magical powers is troublesome and worries us in future events, but we shall simply wait and prepare for that time and hope it never comes. Stalking you in the cover of darkness, lying in wait for easy prey, laying waste to dozens in a single breath. The green nightmares of plant royalty seek to sate their hunger and add you to their wandering grave. Beware the Malboro.